Good evening, all. And as I told you guys earlier, I see that I haven't gotten any responses to the question that I posed earlier, which is, when did I start believing that my voice didn't matter? Trace back, trace the silence back to its origin, then speak. And I see that you guys are not trying to participate, but that's all right. So, like I said, I'm going to give the answer to mine. So, when I started to believe my voice didn't matter was it started for me when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was always told to shut up. I was always told to stay in the kid's place. I was always told that I talk too much, and most of the time, since when I would ask a question, like if an adult did something wrong, or if I needed clarity of something, and I would be like, well, how come, I got to do this and no one else has to, oh, shut up. Oh, because I told you to. Oh, shut up. Just go in the kid's place, and it was always something like that. I was always getting brushed off. Nobody never wanted to hear my voice. I would get whooping sometimes if I would speak up. I would get on punishment sometimes. If I would speak up again, I was not really able to express myself. Anytime I express myself, oh, you so angry. Oh, you so hard to deal with. You're mean. And I'm like, huh? So somebody else could say the same thing I'm saying. And, oh, we commend you. We commend you. Yeah. Don't mess with this person because that's so and so. But I can say the same thing that they say, and then it's like, oh, she's so mean. Oh, here we go again. She's so hard to deal with. She always do it. And it's like, huh? Like, you know, um, and I just hated that. So it began to make me feel, like I didn't matter. I started to feel, like shit sometimes or less than. I was confused because sometimes they would, if I would say something, then they would flip my words to make it seem like I said something else when I didn't say it, and it's like, no, I didn't say that. They would try to confuse the timeline or whatever, just to try to make me kind of seem like I was crazy or whatever, again, to try to silence me because they know I was about to speak the truth and they didn't want me to speak the truth. And I'm, the black sheep of my family. I'm the chosen one. And so as I've gotten older, I now understand. But and this is why when I would be around certain folks, I would be quiet. I found like when I was grown up, dealing with certain relatives, hanging around certain cousins or whatever, right? We would all be in a family gathering or whatever, and most of the times I would be sitting in the back, not talking to nobody, really, by myself, kind of, not really talking. Or if I was around everybody else was talking and I would just always be sitting there listening or maybe laughing or whatever, nodding and agreeing, whatever, but not necessarily speaking. Because when I would speak sometimes, then somebody would overtalk me. Somebody would try to cut me off and I wasn't even finished my sentence or my thought. And I would get cut off. Somebody would overtalk me or whatever. And so, then I began to just not either say anything, or sometimes I would shut down, because again, whenever I would go talk, it was like, ugh, here we go again. Like I was such a big problem when, no, I was never a problem. And again, it stemmed from when I was a child, and even as I got older, as I began to start setting those boundaries and saying things like, things that I don't like, like I have an issue. I have an issue. This is something that I don't like anybody doing. I do not like to be put in group texts. And when I tell people, hey, take me out of the group text, people want to try to come at me as though I'm trying to be a jerk or being, mean or whatever. And it's like, no, if you see that I'm not responding, if you see that I'm not participating in the group text, and y'all texting all day, and then I'm like, okay, this is enough. I'm tired. I done let this happen all day. Now I'm ready to tie it down, and you don't have a right to tell me what's late. If I say 5 o'clock is late for me to be receiving a group text or for you to be texting me, 5 o'clock is late. You don't get to tell me how to set my boundaries. You don't get to tell me what's late. In my eyes, whatever's late is late. And so those are the types of things that would kind of try to be silenced, they would do to try to silence me. And I'm not just talking about like relatives or anything. I'm even talking about in certain, relationships and friendships and even at jobs, being at certain jobs, they would try to silence me from speaking because they know that, again, my light is bright. I'm chosen. And people sense that. People can tell and sense things about me when they're becoming to engage with me and getting to know me. And then when they see who I am, they try to silence me. this even happened in the church. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, it happened everywhere, because again of who I am. But I'm not silenced anymore. I'm speaking up, and it doesn't matter if they don't like it or not. I don't care. Who are they? A lot of people who want to try to shut me up and silence me don't even know me, just like I don't know them, but they don't want me to speaking the truth or my truth. But it's not going to stop me. My truth is out, and I'm speaking it. So, yeah, when did I stop believing that my voice didn't matter? And I was afraid to speak up too, because when I was younger, I felt like my voice was deep. I felt like I had a man's voice. I felt like my voice was more hoarse or raspy, or, and I felt it was a man's voice. And I didn't like to talk and speak because I'm like, I don't like the way I sound. And so I can recall this woman. I used to go to this program where, they would, because, growing up being in, toxic households and being abused or whatever, right? I had low self-esteem. So I would go to certain programs to help me build my self-esteem. And it was mostly women, and I remember a question like this somewhat posed a question similar to this, but it wasn't this exact question, right? And then I had to speak, and I didn't want to speak. And everybody was encouraging me, like, come on, no, you can do it, you can do it. So I finally spoke, and I said, I don't like the way I sound. My voice is too deep. I don't like my voice. And one woman, I remember her name. Her name is Tamiko Brown. And she was like, girl, that's your power. That's where your strength is, in your voice. She said, we love to hear you talk. She said, when we're talking and we're in our little huddles or whatever, and you talking, we love it. You got a lot to say, and we want to hear your voice. So don't ever let nobody silence you and shut you up. And when she said that, I was shocked, because I was like, what? I wasn't able to believe her, right? Because it was like, really? You'd like to hear what I got to say, because nobody else really did. Like I said, I could be around, relatives and everything, and everybody's chilling and talking, and I'm really just there. Like, I just was accustomed to being just there. Not necessarily talking and engaging, but literally there, laughing and stuff like that, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Just my presence or whatever. I wasn't doing a lot of talking, because again, like I said, when I did talk, people like to cut me off. People like to overtalk me, and it's basically, you can already tell when somebody's trying to overtalk you, and they're trying to shut you up because they don't want to hear what you got to say, because, you might expose them, or they just might hear the truth and they ain't ready to hear that truth. And so, of course, they're going to try to shut you down. But, yeah. But, again, now that we know, mine was traced back from childhood. A lot of things happened to me in my childhood, and a lot of things also traumatized me too, which made it to be where I didn't want to speak up, because when I did speak up, when I did tell, nobody had my back, nobody protected me. I was left, for the wolves. I was left for the wolves. They tried to bury me, but they didn't know I was a seed. So, like I said, I promised you guys that I would give a video, and here's the video. So, like I said, let's hear yours. When did you, and I never really, believed that my voice didn't matter. I just wasn't able to express myself.